A new insider mock draft just dropped, and the Dallas Cowboys are taking the dramatic route in it. Let's dive in. What is up, everyone, and welcome into Primetime, new insider mock draft in the world of the NFL by Peter Schrager, who obviously is an NFL insider for Fox Sports. He's also on Good Morning Football. And although he's not the film junkie like maybe many of the draft analysts out there are, Peter Schrager is pretty well connected around the league. Now, we're not going to act and pretend like he's going to be right about every single little thing, but he did have an interesting approach to the Cowboys pick at 24th overall, and certainly a unique one, because instead of going with an offensive lineman, he has the Cowboys taking a wide receiver. And we're going to dive into his breakdown in just a little bit. But that's particularly dramatic in a world where the Cowboys are dealing with CeeDee Lamb holding out from the offseason. Not only that, because who cares about CeeDee missing out on voluntary workouts, but there's a lot of whispers around the Cowboys nation about there not being any sort of substantial, that's the word that Calvin Watkins from Dallas Morning News used, substantial talks between Cowboys and Lamb. So that makes it even more interesting. This is not to say, by the way, that Worthy would take CeeDee's place in the long term and have an Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb kind of situation going on later on. That would be crazy to think about, but it sure would make things interesting. Now, the player that Peter Schrager, and we're going to dive into who was on the board, who was not on the board, which makes it even more unique again. But the pick for the Cowboys at 24th overall, according to Peter Schrager, will be Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of the University of Texas. And man, it would be something. For those of you who are unaware, Xavier Worthy went to the NFL Scouting Combine. He ran a 40-yard dash in 4.21 seconds. Fastest man in combine history. And he is that kind of receiver when he's on the field as well. You're talking about somebody that can really be a headache for defenses thanks to his verticality. And I hate to make this comparison, but if you're going to bet on somebody like Worthy, you're kind of betting on him working out to be somewhat of a Tyreek Hill. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about being the best wide receiver in football or one of the best wide receivers in football, but that's kind of like the project that you are accepting. Now, let me read to you what Peter Schrager had to say about the pick. He wrote, officially the fastest man in combine history, Worthy would be a wonderful addition as a deep threat for Dak Prescott. With contract issues looming over Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, the selection of Worthy would show both a commitment to adding pieces on offense without sacrificing major cap space in free agency. Let me ask you something and let me know your answers in the chat. I'll be in the comment section later seeing what you guys have to say. Do you like or dislike the mock pick of Xavier Worthy? Let me know in the chat. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell you more or less how I feel about it. I think it would be fun. Like, there's no person on earth that can tell me it would be a boring pick. Adding Xavier Worthy to your offense would at the very least be fun because he is that kind of vertical threat that can change and dictate how opponents play coverages. When the Cowboys started firing the ball at such a high rate in the 2023 season, what did we start seeing? When they were feeding CeeDee Lamb the way that they were, 10-plus targets every single time during the midseason, right around that Rams game when they all went crazy, and the Philadelphia Eagles game and everything, we started seeing a lot of double coverage on CeeDee Lamb. And then what happened? Brandon Cooks started getting his, and Jake Ferguson started to go off. And if you add somebody that you really need that safety over the top on, that is a much more difficult task. Like if you go out there and you play 3-by-1 and you put Xavier Worthy to the trip side where you're likely going to send some safety help, and you put CeeDee Lamb over on the isolated side of things, you're really putting the defense in a bind because suddenly you don't want to leave the backside cornerback all alone by himself. So you might want a safety over there. But that means you're not loading the box. So that opens up the run. That's the kind of threat that really somebody with that deep speed and that verticality can really do to your offense. So it would be a fun pick. There's no question about that. The thing about it, though, is that when you try to evaluate how you feel about a mock pick, you also have to evaluate who's on the board and who's not on the board. Now, noteworthy names that were still on the board for the Cowboys at 24th overall in this scenario. Amarius Mims, who projects as a tackle at the next level. Limited experience, but he's a monster. He's 6'8", he's 340 pounds. Showed some impressive flashes when he was at Georgia playing SEC football. But Amarius Mims, maybe there are some question marks about who he really is because it's so much of a project. Graham Barton, who to many is the best offensive center in this year's NFL draft class. And Graham Barton is being passed on when we all know the biggest need for the Cowboys is offensive line. Now, we're going to get a little bit deeper into that in a little bit here. Adonai Mitchell, Worthy's teammate, is also on the board by the time Peter Schrager made this pick. Zach Frazier and Jackson Powers Johnson, who falls out of the top 32 picks. And as the day two chatter keeps growing and growing around Jackson Powers Johnson, the league might be much lower on the Oregon prospect than the media is. Now, off the board entirely, interestingly enough, was Tyler Guyton, who seems to be mocked to the Cowboys pretty often. Another guy that it's an absolute tackle project. Brian Thomas, wide receiver from LSU, and Byron Murphy from Texas, also off the board. Here's where I'm at with this pick. Again, it would be fun. Personally, I would find it very tough to pass on Graham Barton if he's there, on Jackson Powers Johnson if he's there, because I kind of want the offensive line help. There's no question about that on my side of things. But hear me out. This is a question worth asking if we're going to try to play devil's advocate and we're going to try to break this down in a very large manner. Who is more of a plug-and-play player, or who could be more of an instant impact player? Xavier Worthy, who would have a very specific role on this offense and would try to be that vertical threat. And by the way, he's not like a one-trick pony that can only run go routes. Let's just make that very clear. He's great in ball tracking. He can play post routes pretty efficiently. He is pretty smooth at the line of scrimmage. So he's not like somebody that will just get overwhelmed if they play press coverage against them. Xavier Worthy is going to give you some twitchy movements right there at the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. So he's not a one-trick pony that can be easily neutralized. Who's more of an immediate impact maker? Somebody like that, or Amarius Mims, who has so much limited experience and that would need to be more of a project and you would need to develop. And the same goes for Tyler Guyton, who in this case is off the board, but is often there when you are mocking the Cowboys draft and you're picking at 24th. And the same question might go for somebody like Graham Barton, who we're not even quite sure where he's going to play at the next level. Now, if we're playing devil's advocate, there's an argument to be made that Xavier Worthy can make more of an impact because he's not only coming in and it's totally on him to perform well, but he kind of will just make things easier for CeeDee Lamb, for Brandon Cooks, and of course, for your quarterback, Dak Prescott. It's something to consider. And it also might come down to this. We know that the Cowboys currently do not have a starting center. They do not have a starting left tackle, and they might have to move their starting left guard from guard to tackle. So we know there are some voids there. Are the Cowboys maybe more comfortable with having TJ Voss step up and play guard, or Matt Willetsko step up and play tackle, Brock Hoffman step up and play center? Are they more comfortable with that scenario than what they are with Jalen Tolbert at wide receiver 3? It's a question worth asking if we're looking at it objectively. Stephen Jones today actually went out there and said, we have guys like Matt Willetsko and Asim Richards, and I'm quoting him, young players who are on the come up. TJ Bass played really well for us last year. Obviously, they are guys that our fans aren't as acquainted with as much, because they had not played as much, but we feel that they can step up, not unlike Tyler Biadasz did as a rookie at center and played really well. Regardless of how you feel about Stephen Jones, regardless of what we think about the way that they're building this team, there's an argument to be made that they might be much more comfortable rolling out an offensive line with the guys that they already have on the roster, and that maybe they really like one of these wide receivers and that they would take a flyer on them because they might want to upgrade at a position that might be more of need than we think. That might be an underrated need for the Dallas Cowboys. If anything, it's a unique mock draft. Let me know in the chat, do you like or dislike the pick? And ladies and gentlemen, I will see you again pretty soon. Hit the like button for me. Remember, Thursday nights, we are going to be back on the live show, and we're going to have a 7-round mock draft that is going to be very exciting. Make sure you tune in to that and have a good one, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much. Hit the like button. Bye-bye.